we do it anyhow? When to begin it now? Whom do we talk to? Anyone, everyone, everyone. So serve to change lives, 'cause lives can be changed forever. Serve to change lives whenever we're working together. Talk to someone right now. Start now and wow. When the right time arrives, you'll see you've changed lives. So serve to change lives, 'cause lives can be changed forever. Whenever we're working together, talk to someone right now. Start now and wow. When the right time arrives, you'll see you've changed lives. So serve to change your life.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and welcome to our meeting today. My name is Richard Dent. I'm the MC for this meeting. I hope you can hear me as we go through this. I read a couple of years ago, I read a book called 2020. It was a horror story. And then I read the follow-up story called 2021. What I hadn't realized was that we're actually in a trilogy. And here we are in 2022. Hopefully there's only 3 books in this series, hey? And we get through this very swiftly. It's been a tough start to the year for lots of people. It was good last week to see Ash Barty and the fantastic success of the Australian Open. And I was reflecting that, in fact, if we're on the Australian continent, then we're on the land of Ash Barty's people, or perhaps Yvonne Goolgong's people, or Lionel Rose's people, or maybe the land of the Indigenous diggers who are at Anzac Cove, or Albert Nabanjira, or Neville Bonner, or Lucha O'Donoghue, or some other mob. And that none of those peoples ever ceded sovereignty. And so we acknowledge that we're on their land and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. We're in for a great meeting today with a vocational services panel and some discussions about innovation and more in typical Rotarian good fellowship. It's my privilege and honour now to ask Suresh to provide thanks.
Thank you, Richard. President Reg, fellow Rotarians. Today, I would like to quote from Nelson Mandela, and it goes as follows. When you're at the top, be careful of the monster called greed, or called pride, sorry. Pride will make you look down on people who haven't attained your level of success. But when you're at the bottom, be careful of the monster called bitterness, because bitterness will make you jealous and think that other people are the reason you haven't made it. When you're on the way to the top, be careful of the monster called greed. Greed will make you impatient and make you seek shortcuts. When you're on your way down, be careful of the monster called despair. Despair will make you think it's all over. But yet, there is still hope. The past few years have been very challenging for many, but let's not give up hope. Let's stay strong and turn these challenges into opportunities. For good food, good fellowship, and the opportunity to serve, we give thanks.
Well, welcome everybody. You may have seen me getting a stern lecture that I hadn't shared my computer's sound. So we had a silent introduction today. Apologies all, especially to Adrienne Nelson, who's here and kindly had produced that tape. That won't happen next time, but it just shows how out of practice we get so quickly. Thank you, Richard and Suresh, for your fine introductions. And I'd now like to invite everyone, Rotarians and guests, to make a toast to Australia and Rotary International. to Australia and Rotary International. Members, visitors and guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our 26th meeting for this Rotary year and our 4,922nd club meeting in our 101st year. Thank you for joining us. We are in the virtual realm yet again, but it's great to see such a good number of people attending today. Thank you. It gives me some confidence that we might be back in person fairly soon. Today we focus on vocational service. You might recall January is Vocational Service Month, but because of the limited number of meetings, we've strayed into February just slightly. We have our annual Vocational Service Issues Day, and today the panel guest speakers discussing opportunities for innovation in services and manufacturing that are emerging as we learn to live with COVID-19. The perspectives are being delivered by Chris Soteropoulos, Professor Susan Davis AO, and George Giardamarcus, three very active members of our club. All will be more fully introduced later in the program by our Chairman and Vocational Service Director, Iqbal Reta. Would you please join me in making them all welcome? Now for a few notices. Firstly, we have some great news with two of our members having been awarded Australia Day Honours. That's Honorary Member Dr. Alan Finkel AO was made a companion, that's the AC in the Order of Australia, for eminent service to science, to national energy innovation and research infrastructure capability, to climate change and COVID-19 response initiatives, and to science and engineering education. And of course Sharon Johnson, Dr. Sharon Johnson, who's here with us today, was recognised as a member AM in the Order of Australia for significant service to community health as an occupational hygienist and to service groups. Indeed, Sharon also celebrates today her 28th anniversary in our beloved club, and just so you might not be aware, but Sharon was sponsored by past Secretary Jill Hibbins, and at the time she was an occupational health advisor to BP Australia, and in more recent years has been sought after consultant to the mining and resources industries and has taken leadership roles in her professional association. Within the club, Sharon has been a very active member, both in committees and leadership roles, and has served as a club director and vice president. For her extensive service to the club over many years, Sharon was recognised with the Paul Harris Fellow in 2017. Sharon is currently group captain of the iconic Malvern Group and chairs the Rotary Park Committee and is active in the club's Environment Sustainability Committee as well. Congratulations to both Alan and to Sharon for this recognition of their service to our community and their vocations. On a slightly sadder note, I have the sad news to relay the peaceful passing of former distinguished member Bill Charlton on Monday evening. Bill was our club treasurer and leader in the restructure of administration of our financial accounts. For his efforts in 2006, he was recognised by President Mev Connell as a Paul Harris Fellow. He had a great interest in Sir John Monash and was a member of the 08 committee and actually visited the Rotary Club of Amiens on behalf of the club. Both Bill and his wife Beverly were active in the Canterbury Waverley Fellowship Group and both served as group captains. In June 2017, they both moved to WA to be close to Beverly's family. Bill joined then the Rotary Club of Perth and subsequently resigned from Rotary Melbourne in June 2018. Vale to a good friend and Rotarian. Finally, to lunches and events going forward. Rotary lunches at number 35 at the Sofitel will continue. We are very optimistic on 16th of February, allowing for a break next week for the evening meeting, which will continue online. Meeting in person under the safety of Sofitel COVID safe procedures is our priority. We need to be able, however, to assure the Sofitel that we have 40 or more attending our lunch meetings in person. It will therefore be vital that if you wish to attend the Sofitel lunch meeting each week in person, you book early so that we can make a decision based on confirmed bookings on the Monday before each meeting. It is now my pleasure to hand over to our chair of the day and survivor, I might say, of COVID-19, Iqbal Reta. Over to you now, Iqbal. Thank you.
Thank you, President Reg. Dear Rotarians and guests, it gives me a great pleasure to chair today's vocational panel for a productive dialogue, and hopefully we have enough time for questions in the end. Vocational service is the essence of Rotary. It holds a key of Rotary's ethos for service above self. Rotary has a rich history with vocational services. In 1905, it was recognized by founder of Rotary International, Paul Harris, that the people can use their vocation to assist others in the community. And thus the concept of Rotary was formed and has been serving its local and international community for over 100 years. The main objective of vocational service and Rotary is to keep and promote high ethical standards in all their business dealings, recognize the worthiness of all occupations, and address society's problems and needs by contributing individual professional expertise and skills. Members can also use their professional experience to mentor others. In our club, there are a number of successful mentoring programs managed by Vocational Services Committee, which includes Victoria Ambulance Mentoring Program, Victoria Police Leadership Mentoring Program, which is also highly valued by senior leadership of Victoria Police, and also Vocational Panel Program, which we are part of today. So as part of Rotary's guiding principle, vocational service assists Rotarians to empower by others using their unique skills and knowledge to address community and their needs and help others to discover their new professional opportunities and interests. So in order to align with these goals, today I would like to introduce our exciting panel. Our first member on the panel is Dr. Chris Sitopoulos, who is practicing commercial lawyer and successful entrepreneur. He will discuss the potential benefit of current turbulent times across globe, which may lead to betterment of society. Then we will have Susan Davis AO. Recently, she has been awarded Order of Australia and also Royal Australasian College of Physicians Medal for distinguished service to medicine and women's health. She will expand on the importance of key challenges which we are facing for health practices and research in Australia. And last on the panel is George Giamadakis. He will focus on the importance of creating clear values and define clear vision and define clear values, informing digital transformation strategy for different organizations in new information age. So please welcome all three panels, and I think it will be a very interesting discussion. So let's start with Chris. So I'll just pass my mic to Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to see each other. I think we're getting used to just even enjoying each other's virtual presence. So for me, that's very helpful, although face-to-face is always just that lot more important. All right, so in terms of the turbulent times, we've seen shifts every month or so over the last 2 years. What does that mean for opportunities in Australia? Well, I'd like to break it up into two elements, the export and the import element. So whilst this discussion will have some commercial overtones, there are elements which fit some of our major industries. Exporting, education. There is a magnificent need at the moment for online courses to be delivered to non-Australian citizens in Africa, citizens in India, who are not able to physically come here. Now, there's two elements to that. There are the students that previously would have been happy to pay, have accommodation, but there's an even larger market of those who are not able to pay the fee, the flights and accommodation and all that lifestyle that they have here whilst they study here. There is a huge market opportunity. We are constantly bombarded by education environments in Africa, India, even parts of Europe saying, we'd love to enroll in online courses. The quality of the education in Australia is renowned. We're having troubles finding it. It's starting, but there's a significant market opportunity. Manufacturing. Even just in the last couple of weeks, we've had inquiries from Asia for our rapid tests, the inner screen, which is manufactured here. And I've asked, well, what do you mean you're after the rapid test that's manufactured here? You've got China manufacturing a whole stack, UK, US. No, we want the Australian one. Quality is really important, obviously prices as well. At the moment, sure, it's embargoed for the appropriate reasons, but there is a theme that the quality of what is produced here in certain industries is instantly and immediately required overseas. Capacity building and peace building. What is that all about? Well, we're seeing that in India, parts of Africa, nations want to try and develop their capacities for cooperatives, for manufacturing, for food processing, for farming, for managing health professionals and how they deal with anxieties and COVID. We have a great opportunity to export our expertise into these regions. And in fact, on the health side, discussions have commenced between Somalia and Australia for our health professionals, our female doctors, to train, well, when I say train, upskill, if you will, their counterparts in that part of the world on some of the nuances of the technical expertise which is practiced here. That's seen as a current and important need. So we have these capabilities. In addition to that, we have a niche but interesting startup community here, where the international market is screaming for agricultural technologies, monitoring systems, sports tech, which in the last 4 months, I've realized that up and down the East Coast, we have internationally competitive startups with opportunities that are being sought after in Dubai, in America, in Europe, in parts of Asia as well. Very niche, but again, it speaks to our expertise and our competence in managing big sporting events and also training of sports. Environmental remediation, big area in Europe and the US. So anything that's coming out of here that's competitive is sought after immediately. On the import side, manufacturing, there's a lot of high-tech intellect here that is recognized. And we've even been contacted by a number of groups overseas saying we would like to create, build, partner with manufacturing facilities here, hiring local staff in order to build all this modern, new age, new platforms of technologies. And these people come with money, and they also come with expertise from overseas in terms of market placement. Technology. India has more unicorns or billion-dollar companies created in the last 12 months than anywhere else on the planet. They are looking for relationships in Australia. They are looking in the retail and the fintech area. They've also got a lot of money that they want to invest into Australia. We are seeing, of course, excellent relationships at the diplomatic sphere as well as Prime Minister level as well. the money is endless from that part of the world. They are looking to invest. They're looking to have a foothold here. They're looking to partner with Australian businesses. I think we'll see a lot more of that in the next 12 months as well. The superhighways model, what is that all about? That's all about people such as on our call today and other people who've had experience and relationships and networks around the world, leveraging those networks as trusted intermediaries to bridge need in one part of the world and service or product or service capability in another part of the world. Now, I think we can do that very well. We're seeing that emerging as an opportunity, and it traverses commerce, education, agriculture, very much in the charitable services environment as well. And I think Rotary can play a big part in that as we move forward. So the network culture is extremely important. Another interesting opportunity is internships and mentoring. Of course, Rotary has a foothold in that environment. There are a lot of international employees, students, graduates who are looking for internships into Australia. I wouldn't have even thought that was a concept. Some of them are happy to work for free. Some of them are happy to receive a nominal payment. This is a significant market where there are tens of thousands of potential applicants that can help Australian businesses and services get off the ground or look at whatever they need to do, but to leverage these students and graduates. So that's all I have to say. Look forward to the Q&A and of course to our other two panelists. But for me, these are points that we've seen, some of which I didn't expect, but have seen as real opportunities to help this nation move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The points you actually made are very valuable, and I'm pretty sure that we'll have questions in the end. Now I actually pass the mic to Susan. Susan, would you like to say some few words?
So thank you for including me. I wasn't sure what I was signing up for when I agreed to do this, so I hope I'm going to sort of hit the right chord here. So I'm going to do some positive and negative stuff, and it's quite timely for me in a way to comment on this. So we all praise Australian researchers. We account for 0.3% of the world population, but we publish 4% of the global research papers. For OECD countries, the average number of publications per million population was 1,800 in 2017, but Australia published over 3,000 papers per million population. So Deloitte was commissioned by the Australian Society for Medical Research to look at what the return was on investment. And Deloitte calculated that for every dollar invested in research in Australia, and I'm not talking medical research, I'm talking about research, basic science, geological research, whatever, there's a return of $3.20. So a 300% return for every dollar invested. So that's brilliant. And Australian researchers or scientists account for 1.2 million of people employed in this country. So since the mid-90s, while the cost of research has gone up, investment in pure basic science has gone down 17%. So all those clever people who are going to do all these clever agricultural and technical things don't have jobs. So we can talk about how clever we are, but if we don't give people jobs, we're not going to be very clever. So as much as we can talk about exporting our clever technology overseas, we don't have the manpower to do it. The attrition in employment in universities is extraordinary. And the universities, to save money, were offering people redundancy packages during COVID. What happened? The best and the brightest with all the corporate knowledge left. So who are all these people who are going to run these courses for overseas students? Because we don't have them in the university. They've all gone. Our staff are stretched beyond the limits. Between 2012 and 2017, the NHMRC funded research workforce dropped by 20%. These are the people who are doing the research in medical science in this country. We are supporting less and less junior researchers. 66% of university employees are casual or on fixed contracts. So people are leaving in droves because they need to be confident. How can I give an example? I just got the top College of Physicians award for contribution to research. I've just spent the last month writing an application for my salary for the next 5 years. People like me aren't tenured. Every 5 years, I have to reapply for my salary. And it gets harder and harder and more grueling. So it doesn't matter how good you are, you've got to keep sort of grinding away at it. And people are exhausted by this. People are really over it. So, and then I get a grant. So successfully get an NHMRC grant. Firstly, if I ask for $1 million, I'm confident that it'll be already slashed by 20% my budget. And then if I employ junior staff, the NHMRC will give me maybe $80,000 for a salary that costs me $110,000 before on costs. So what happens is the university has to find the money to top up the salary, which is about 50% of the salary. So the university is struggling to fund research. So that's really negative, but it's the true story. It's just getting terrible. So what can Rotarians do? I think you need to lobby the government and talk to people about investment in research. Rotary has a lot of scholarships for PhD students. PhD scholarships are not hard to get. The people who can't get funding are the ones who have done their PhD and need a mid-career research scholarship. They're the ones, anyone who's bright can get a PhD scholarship. But to get a mid-career research scholarship, they're totally underfunded. And that's where we see the attrition, where people get their PhD, they're desperate to stay in research, they don't have the funding to stay in research, and then they go somewhere else. I think that the model for way Rotary funds international scholarships has to be reviewed, and I'm happy to talk about that. I think we have to be brave. Anyone who invents anything clever in this country takes it overseas because investors won't take risks here. The best and the brightest inventions are taken overseas. And so we have incredible research clinical trial capacity in this country, but we're not using it because the early drug discoveries are taken overseas, and then the companies overseas develop them, and it never comes back here for the clinical trials. So I think, and finally, the bureaucracy that people have to go through is horrendous. So, that's a major drama for Australian researchers. So there are huge challenges, but there are enormous opportunities because research brings money into the country. And I'll finally end off on one note, which many of you may not be familiar with, or you may be. We need academic freedom. The Australian Research Council funds all the research that's not medical, so geology, humanities, etc. On Christmas Eve last year, ARC applicants for funding were notified whether they were funded or not. 6 projects that were approved by the most esteemed peer review were knocked back by the acting Minister of Education because he didn't think they were good investments for the country. 6 were in humanities and 4 were in literature. So that's not academic freedom. If the best researchers in the country review grants, and then someone who's a politician says it's not good use of money, is completely out of line, and we're losing freedom as academics. So academic freedom is vital if we want to have a vital research capacity, whether it be humanities, other sciences, or health sciences. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was really great insight. And I always wondered why British minds actually leave Australia. And now I think this actually explains why. So thank you for that. We will have plenty of time to ask questions in the end. So I'll move to George and see, George, if you can provide us some insights how the digital transformation can actually help us, or how Rotary can actually assist. So George, over to you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. Yes, this is a very interesting topic, future of work and digital. And generally speaking, when we talk about these things, people tend to gravitate to the things, the digital things, and how that might help. And I just ask people to think back to when digital first became a thing, and everyone was running around saying how wonderful it would be when we digitize everything. We'll have all this freedom to be able to do this, that, and the other thing. We'll be able to sit back, sip pina coladas on a beach, and digital will take care of everything. Well, how did that go for everybody? Didn't quite work out that way, did it? And part of the reason, I believe, is because we forget about the people, we forget about the behavioural side of things. And I just want to pick up on a point that Susan made, and I believe that this is the primary motive for why we're seeing things like the Great Resignation and some of the challenges that businesses are facing with their business model. And that is a word that she used, which was freedom. And fundamental to what I'm seeing, and when I'm talking to people in business, is the shift that is happening from that centralised model that we've been living with for many, many decades, arguably hundreds of years, to this decentralised model. Now, the decentralised model is one where it is better suited for people who are after motivation and flexibility. That's the importance that they place on that decentralised model. The centralised model is more about economies of scale. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other or more valuable than the other. It means that we need to think about when we choose what business model we want to apply and how we apply it. And fundamentally, I believe with this shift that's happening with people and resources is because not so much that people are saying, I want to pursue my passion. My personal belief on passion is I don't know that people actually wake up and go, I found my passion and go and pursue it. I think what happens is people discover what they're really, really good at, develop that, improve, and then they discover whatever their passion is. And what I mean by that is I don't think people wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to be the world's greatest tax accountant, for example. So I believe that is something now that people are starting to discover and move towards being more about, well, what is it that I'm really, really good at and how can I become better? And that is forcing people to look at other alternatives. And the decentralised model is giving them that opportunity. At the same time, it's placing challenges on business, because how do you maintain, retain and grow and promote valuable staff? And the key point there is, and again, both Chris and Susan's talked about this, is the vision and the values of the business. If there is not a clear vision and if the values are not believed in an organisation, it makes it very, very difficult for people to stay and to grow in that business and to see their own value. If you can create a clear vision, and there's plenty of research on this, plenty of research around the visions and values piece that will drive behaviour and attract and bring in the right people. And you can see that, if you go back to the point about the Great Resignation, if you look at the companies that do well in terms of their ratings in Glassdoor and those sorts of things, where basically people are saying whether a good business to work for or not, the ones that do better are the ones that have got a better retention rate of staff, and usually they're the ones that have got a clear vision and clear values. And if you've got that as a basis, then your ability to be able to do what you want to do in business and give the space to people for them to contribute so they're important, will become better and the business will grow. And certainly that's what I'm seeing, where businesses are now saying, well, okay, I now need to embrace this decentralized model. How do I go about it? It doesn't mean that they get it right the first time. There are difficulties with it, but they are working hard towards it, and they're the ones that are doing better. And I'll give you an example that I want to use with staffing in terms of recruitment in particular and how you think about things. And this is my personal experience where I was before in the corporate world. So I had an instance where I had to fulfill a customer service role for a large engineering firm. Now that customer service role was super critical. At the time, I was driving a Lexus and had it in for service. And for those who have experienced a Lexus service, I've got to say it's second to none. I was talking to the service person there, and I actually asked her straight out and said, would you be interested in a customer service role? I was going to poach her. To which she said, no, I want to stay here and I actually want to become a salesperson on the floor at Lexus. So I asked her, I said, how did you end up here? And she said, the way that we get recruited is actually look for a background in hairdressing. Now, why? Because hairdressers are very good at carrying a conversation, being customer friendly, being customer service, customer focused. And then the light bulb went off in my head. So I went and looked for someone who had that hairdressing sort of background, because to get someone in customer service is quite difficult in this particular role. Got a person in, absolutely blew the place apart. Fantastic. So the lesson there for me was, don't necessarily look for a like for like. Look for what it is that you need to fill as a gap in terms of the skill set, the type of person, the values, the vision, and can they carry it forward? And if you can do that, then you'll attract the right people. They'll obviously stay and they'll help grow the business. Because I think this is the biggest challenge that businesses face now, and it's getting harder because there's more of this Zoom stuff, right? So how do you maintain that interaction? And if you haven't got the right people in the right spots, they're able to amplify and embrace the technology and use it in the right way, it'll be a bigger or a greater struggle. So that's what I'm seeing, and I think that should be more of a focus than really thinking about how can we better utilize 3D printing. Yes, there's an opportunity with 3D printing, particularly with supply chain. Absolutely. I'm surprised that there hasn't been as much noise, if you like, around self-driving automated vehicles, because you would have thought right now that there would be a greater need for that, given the logistics issues and the transportation issues that have got going on. Now, I'm not suggesting for a split second we need to see these on the road right now, but you don't hear the conversation. And I think part of it is in the rhetoric to what Chris and Susan were saying as well, where you listen to the conversation that comes out of places like the US, where we're going to have $325 billion towards research and innovation. Australia, we're going to have a research and development tax incentive. And I think that's the difference in terms of the mindset. Right? And I think that's the shift that we need, and that's how we're going to help bring business forward and through people's thinking and getting people to be more embracing of people and utilising the technology, not relying on the technology to drive the outcomes. That's what I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, George. Very great points you have actually made, and thanks very much. Now I think we have a little time for questions. I would like to open the floor for questions to be asked. So anyone have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can type in the chat box as well. Richard, probably might you have some questions?
I'd be interested to hear from Susan how you think we might best, our Rotary, which is like a nationwide movement in every community, how do we best raise the profile of this critical under-resourcing of research? How do we do that?
So for an organisation that's not political, you can't do it from a political perspective. I think one of the problems where Australian researchers shoot themselves in the foot is they do so much on the smell of an oily rag. So you get this committed body of people who work the most, I get emails. If I send an email to a friend on a Sunday, a colleague, I get an email back on a Sunday. Everybody works all the time. And we punch above our weight because we're doing it because we love it, not because people pay us a lot of money. And I don't think there's a global, when I say global, an Australian awareness that people are doing it on the most extraordinarily limited funds. So I think the way to get the message out is we always sort of celebrate the outcomes, but maybe we need to have some greater acknowledgement of the circumstances in which research is produced, and talk about it. There's not much more you can do in an apolitical manner, because what we need is investment. NHMRC funding's gone up at about half the rate of inflation, maybe less. So beyond that, I don't know what Rotary can do other than, I said, support middle tier researchers we lose people beyond between PhD and top of the pile. We lose good people, and we need to keep them in the system. That's the best I can say.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Bev, I think you probably have typed in a question. I think it'll be much easier if you can get on the mic, I guess.
It's interesting hearing the approach from all three of you. I don't know how many of you have been looking at the Channel 2 documentary series on great inventions made in Australia, and perhaps heard that, I think it's today or yesterday, announcement from the government that they're going to invest millions into our brightest for research in unis and that. Do you think programs like that documentary are raising a level of awareness that we, just how potent our leading inventors are and how pathetic our standing is in the way research is, handled in universities and wanting to change? Do you think that that's a genuine thing, or do you see it as a ploy, knowing that there's an election coming up?
Oh, the funding's a ploy. There's no question, because, the university is now going to be falling over each other, and they're going to be employing people to work out how they can get their hands on this money. And there's going to be so much time invested into getting the money. And then it's not necessarily going to go, the university is going to say, well, what can we put up that's going to be really amazing? So it's almost like we was just talked about by George. Don't let the technology drive the momentum. You need the momentum to use the technology. Don't let so they say, oh, there's a block of funding. Oh, we better work out what we can do to get the funding. What you need to do is fund the people, make it a more open playing field so that the people doing research, which may not be the flavor of the month at the moment, will rise to the top. The cream rises to the top if you fund it. But we're going top down, no bottom up. Don't go to the universities, fund the researchers.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks.
Now, I think there's another question is asked by our member, Sandra Hills. I think the question is for George. George, she's asking, where do you think the health and aged care industry should be looking for staff?
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to ask a question like this. I put the example.
Yeah, well, your comments about the hairdresser. I mean, I'm a director on the Australian Aged Care Workforce Council, which the federal government funded. Not needless to say, we're not doing all that well at the moment. So yeah, I mean, any insights? Clearly, payment is an issue, but
Yeah, Sandra, what I would say is, so obviously you need someone who's very caring and nurturing. So I would look to sectors and professions that offer that as part of their core. So, it might be someone from our armed forces, for example, or it might be someone from, even the police or ambulance type of scenario, even from certain sectors of hospitality, not all. I mean, obviously aged care is not my core experience. So I'm not guessing, but I'm saying that the focus should be around which areas offer the ability for people to show that they care, and then try and explore those. And I think that you might be surprised, particularly, I mean, aged care has had a lot of, I mean, you know better than anyone, a lot of publicity for all sorts of reasons. But I also think that it provides an opportunity for people who really want to contribute and make a difference to heed to that calling. I mean, if you're, for example, you know, if you're a nurse, you're a very giving person. You see that as your calling. You definitely see that as your calling. Right? So I think people need to feel that connection in order for them to work in an environment like that, regardless of whether it's aged care or not, anything to do with care. That's why I would look for that trait. Look for where you think that trait might exist and explore the options. Be happy to have a chat with you offline about it and explore it further if you like.
Thanks, George. Yep.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Romana, probably she is one of the youngest, one of the new members in Rotary. Do you have any questions?
Hi, everyone. No, I'm good. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to see you.
Iqbal, I have a question for Chris Sotropoulos.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go for it, Suresh.
Yeah. Chris, with regards to your suggestion for export of online education, the fact is that neither TEXA nor ESCOIS currently has a regulatory framework for monitoring the standards of online education en masse. Is there a risk that we risk our reputation by opening up too fast to online education?
I'll take a bullish approach. I don't think so. The institutions are very much, they've got their own quality controls. They're aware of what systems they need in order to communicate, as they do currently with their local students. So for them to adopt an international model, I think is not that difficult. They already have practices, experience with campuses overseas, selling agents that bring in students. So models are there. I think they just need to bite the bullet and say, we will allocate a small portion of our business in the next 2 years to develop this. And you'll find that there could be some good strategic relationships as well on a nation-to-nation basis as well.
So are you suggesting that it should be self-regulated?
The national regulators will jump on this quickly, but I think at the moment, yeah, I don't see a reason why, for example, Monash University can't develop an online program for students in Rwanda, or the Tamil region in India.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Suresh. Jim Watchett, I think he has a question in regards to the scholarship for the mid-career academic. So Jim, would you like to ask a quick question?
Sure. Hi, Susan. Having done a PhD decades ago, I'm a bit out of touch with the academic world, but it did intrigue me that you suggested that instead of offering scholarships for students, sort of move along the food chain a little bit. I was just sort of wondering what sort of dollars would make a meaningful multi-year scholarship for an academic that's 10 years into their career, just as a ballpark.
So an early career researcher is someone 5 years post-PhD, and a mid-career is sort of 5 to 10 years. And after 10 years post-PhD, they've survived the trauma of surviving, and they're in there. So the ones I think that would be really valuable to fund. So if you've got a post-PhD, 0 to 5 years post-PhD, and even after that, they'll be earning about 100 to 120K. So to offer a 50% fellowship where the university matches 50% for 12 months, because what often you find is they just need a bridging fellowship when they're a near miss from getting an NHMRC fellowship. So you get these, you know, the cutoff might be of a score might be 5.7 out of 7 to get a fellowship, and they've come in at 5.6. And if they just had another year they could stay in the system, they could be really good students or good researchers. And those scores, mind you, were very fickle. Somebody did a study a few years ago, and they looked at the scoring for NHMRC fellows, and the top ones will always get funded. The rubbish ones will never get funded. And in between, you may as well roll a dice. So we have a lot of really wonderful mid-career or early career researchers who just need 12 months of someone believing in them, a bit of relief, so they can get in the door with a fellowship and have a career. And they're the ones I'd fund.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Suze. I think Peter Rogers, I think I've seen his name in the chat box, and probably Peter Rogers has some questions related to the funding of the medical research. Peter, would you like to just ask a brief question with Suzanne?
Well, thank you, Iqbal, and thank you, Susan. My question really follows on from Jim Orchard, picking up on this theme of funding of experienced researchers. I think what you're saying, Susan, is that a meaningful contribution here would be something like $60,000 for a year, matched by the university. At the moment, and Suresh is our representative and local expert, but at the moment, the way the funding works is that we leverage about $11,000 a year from a club, with $11,000 from Australian Rotary Health and $11,000 from the university to come up with $33,000. And I think perhaps what we should do is to say, well, look, that's okay, but we should perhaps encourage Suresh to put forward a proposal that we balance that with another category of funding along a model that you would suggest, Susan, and see how we go. Well, so, yeah. Suresh, you've been following this. You may have some suggestions too on how we might be able to meet Susan's needs.
And they're not my needs. I mean, I just see we see the attrition in the mid-career researchers, and they're the people who are going to lead research in the future. It's not the PhD students who are getting the 11,000, sort of 33,000 funding. It's the mid-careers, and we need to keep them in the system or not have them leak overseas.
Yeah, I can see that, and I'm, I guess, trying to respond, Susan, by perhaps tempting Suresh to put together some kind of proposal to address the issue.
Happy to talk about it, Peter.
Well, maybe you could talk to Susan and rough something out, and we have our district governor-elect, I think, in on this call, and she's a director of Australian Rotary Health, and I'm sure she's listening to this also.
Folks, I think this is a very interesting policy discussion, but we need to move on. Back to you, Iqbal.
Yeah, no, thank you, Raj. I think we're just running a bit over time, but thank you, Peter. That was a great chat. And I think the last question, we'll take the last question from Peter Berg. Peter Berg, would you like to say something? We can't hear. We can't hear.
Yeah, great discussion. Hi, everyone. Right, yep. Okay. Yeah, my question, I think it's George mentioned the two words great resignation, which has been in the media recently, quite commonly being used. So a question, I suppose, to George, and maybe Chris wants to comment on this too, is that why are people resigning? Who are the people resigning and where they're going and what are they doing? And can certain industries and demographics be identified in this regard? I know from my own experience of talking to people that are sort of 20, 30 years younger than myself, sort of in that 30 to 40 age range, the issues of work-life balance are coming up more and more, and people are, comments coming back to me of how stressful it is in many environments working today with unbelievably long hours and pressures put on people. So I'm just interested in those comments.
Yeah, Peter, I think a lot of people that are leaving, my experience is they're leaving because obviously they're unhappy. And I think the work-life balance bit is a bit of a throwaway line. I think what they're really saying is what I was saying earlier, is they want to have that freedom to be able to contribute in a meaningful way. And in order for them to be able to do that, it means that they need to buy into the vision and the values of the business. And if the vision and the values of the business are not clear, it makes it very, well, makes it a lot easier to leave. As to where they're going, I think a lot of them are still trying to work out exactly where to go. So I don't believe this is just a problem for business in terms of people who are trying to hire and find the right people. I think it's also a problem for people who are leaving, because they're not quite sure, generally speaking, where they want to end up, because they're looking for that, the Simon Sinek why type of thing. They want to buy into something, because people want to contribute. At the end of the day, when you feel good is when you contribute to something and you can see your contribution. When you're just treated as a number and you're helping grow a business and become profitable, but you're just going through the motions, you can lose your way pretty quickly. So I can't say to you, because I don't know that they're going either this over here or over there, but I do suspect that there is this this want for freedom, and that want means that they're looking at a more decentralized model, and it means that they're looking for contribution.
Thank you, George. And I think we're just running a bit of a time. So I'd just like to say thank you to our panelists, George, Susan, and Chris. Well done, and thanks very much. You have provided us with valuable information. So I'll just pass my mic to our President, Reg, to close off the meeting.
Well, thanks very much, Iqbal. And can I just say to everyone, I think from where I'm sitting, this has been a remarkably successful vocational panel. And I wanted to say a huge thank you to all three of you, but I also want to thank Iqbal and Marg Lacer, who Marg is the chair of the Vocational Service Committee, and I think as a team you've combined to deliver a fantastic effort today. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to all the members who've been able to be here. I think it's been a rare, a great experience. And so I'd also like to, in closing, thank our MC, Richard Dent, and of course, for a great reflection, Suresh Markandan. And I'd also like to say an enormous thank you to everyone for being here with over 55 people. I think there's definitely a hunger to be getting back to doing what Rotary does best. A reminder that next week, a monthly meeting broadcast on Zoom is an evening meeting with guest speaker Emma Hurd, partner at Ernst & Young, on climate change and sustainability services. Emma is a skilled professional with over 20 years experience in climate change, sustainable finance and sustainability practice. We're fortunate she has agreed to present at our online evening meeting next week on a very timely topic, the rise and rise of ESG. Can capital save the planet? We hope you can join us. I close the meeting today with a memorable rendition of the late John Lennon's Imagine, performed at the London Olympics in 2012, acknowledging that during this month, February, we are celebrating Rotary Peace and Conflict Prevention Resolution. Before we listen, let's also wish our Chinese friends and members a happy Lunar Chinese New Year, and for our Olympians who are currently preparing to compete in Beijing, go well, please. So please, in the meantime, please enjoy this marvellous song, stay safe, and please spread kindness.